Welcome everybody to episode 5 of Red Sox Life Live, and we got a special guest today. I'm thrilled to say that Jared Carrabis is here. He's the Red Sox blogger for Barstool Sports. He's a guy who knows his Red Sox. He's a guy who breaks big stories, and we're glad to have him here. And of course, our old faithful Ian. Love having Ian on board. He writes for Red Sox Life. So again. This is going to be fun. I'm excited about this one. And so just a heads up, if you have any questions, hit me up on Twitter, Mendoza_lines. It's right there. You can check it out. We're going to have a Q&A at the end. So if you have a question for Jared, go ahead and tweet us right now. We had some technical difficulties, but we're back. And I'll filter them. Don't worry, man. We're not going to let any haters through here.
Bring it on. I don't care.
I like it.
All of it. Yeah.
I like it, man. So Jared, first things first, I told you I didn't want to overplay this. I thought it was a great win picking up that Panda Instagram story. I thought it was cool. I liked it. I like the fact that if the Red Sox are going to hold people accountable, you will. I think
of course.
You're the man of the people, and I like that, man. So I know you explained it before, but what I really want to know is, have you heard anything from the Red Sox organization at all about it?
Not from the organization, but I did hear a story in regards to the players, and I won't go too far into detail, but let's just say that one of the players did something that lightheartedly made fun of the situation to make light of it, and like they're having fun with it, and like that's good that it's they move past it and they're not pissed about it, and it's a joke now, and that's fine.
Nice. Good.
I mean, as long as they're not pissed at me. I mean, that's what I was kind of in fear of, is that they would be pissed at me. But it is what it is.
No, it's funny because when you tweeted it out, you said not to blow up his spot,
but and then did exactly that.
Right. And to be quite honest with you, I thought it was pretty funny. And you wrote about it in your article in Barstool that you didn't think it was a big deal. And I think I was told over and over again by some ex-MLB player, oh yeah, they do it all the time. I think your point was like it's not that they do it, it's that they don't leave a digital paper trail that they've been doing.
Right. Yeah, and I assumed that, and then it came out that a bunch of players were like, yeah, I'm on my phone all the time in the clubhouse. I'm just not dumb enough to, send out an electronic signal to basically say, hey, I'm on my phone right now in the middle of the game. I think it was David Price who said that he's on his phone all the time, and
Your boy, plenty of guys, huh?
yeah, David Price coming right out to shoot down my story. I love it.
Never a dull moment with that one. Hey, Ian, what did you think about the story, man?
I thought it was pretty funny, actually. I mean, seeing all this stuff going on, I mean, it's like 13-year-old girls out there. It's one thing after another with this team, but got him out of the lineup, and hopefully he's back in now playing well, and that's what this team needs. I mean, this team needs to get going, and taking 2 out of 3 from Kansas City was huge. So we're going to have pre-Carrabis tweet and then post-Carrabis tweet season, so we'll see where we can go from there.
That's what it do. Just had to rattle that cage a little bit to wake them up, and what are they, 3-1 since Panda Gate? So yeah, I'm taking 1,000% credit for that.
What about the injury? You're not taking any credit for that, right?
I think Blackburn's blaming me for that. I think he said that because he got benched and he was stiff from being on the bench, that's why he pulled his groin or whatever the hell he did, rolled his ankle or some shit. I don't know.
Not to blow up Blackburn's spot, but I think he's the one going on vacation. Let's just set the record straight there for you.
Yeah.
It's Blackburn going on vacation. It's not Carrabis, okay?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think I posted the podcast at 8 o'clock. It's about an hour and 15 minutes after that, and people are ripping me in the comments for saying, hey, you just broke a national story, way to go on vacation for 2 weeks after. And it's not my fault. It is Pete's fault.
There you go. You heard it first, man. That's what I'm talking about. So let's dive right in. One of the things that I want to talk about is Rick Porcello. The craptastic season he's having in 2015, not living up to his $12.5 million, and then God knows what's going to happen in 2015 or 2016 when that $20 million kicks in. What do you think about him so far? And is this just kind of like an anomaly, or do you think this is Porcello?
I don't think that he's as bad as he's pitching right now. I don't think that he's going to live up to being a $20 million pitcher at any point, in my personal opinion. But the Barstool readers kind of are getting on me pretty hard because I wrote originally that it was a steal. But what I meant by that was that I don't hate the philosophy that they had in going out and spending that kind of money on a guy who could potentially be worth it in those years. Because, I mean, what's he, 25, 26? So
Yeah,
to invest that kind of money in a guy, you know, in what is supposed to be his prime years, I don't hate that philosophy, but it's so far as looking like they did it with the wrong guy, like experimenting with this new philosophy.
Ian, what do you think, man? Is he just crappy? I mean, what are you thinking?
Well, like Jared was saying, he's not as bad as he's been, but again, he's not going to live up to be a $20 million guy. I can see him being a 3 in this rotation, maybe a 2 if, you know, you get a really good 1, or if Buchholz really steps out and becomes, you know, a Cy Young kind of guy like he was back in early 2011. But I
Right.
I don't see him actually fulfilling, you know, a front end of the line guy. I mean, he was back in Detroit for a reason because they have some good guys over there, and I mean, there was no need for him to step it up. There was not a lot of pressure pitching in the number 5 spot.
You know, what I thought was interesting is in 2014, I had to look this stat up today as I was writing an article, that his WAR was 4. Like, he had a WAR of 4 in 2014 with the Tigers, which I thought was that was kind of just stupid that he had that high of a WAR. And then 2015, right now, he's got a negative, I think it's negative .1 right now. And I get what you're saying, but here's a question for you. Would you right now, how things are going, would you take John Lester if you had to trade Rick Porcello and Mookie Betts to Chicago?
Me?
Yeah.
Ooh, that's tough. I mean, wow, that's a really tough question. Probably not. No, I don't think I would do that at this point. I think we're starting to see now just how special of a player that Mookie Betts is. And as good as John Lester is going to be within the next 2-3 years, I expect a decline. And then you're going to get 7, maybe 8 years of Mookie at his peak. So especially now this year where it's like, you know, they're playing well right now, but are they realistically going to get back in this and make a push to the World Series? No. So, yeah.
Is that an official Carrabis, like, that's it?
No. I think I wrote today that, you know, I was questioning. I was like, are they tricking me here? Are they actually going to, you know, get back in this? Because I think that, what are they? They're 9 games out right now.
Yep.
If they can cut it down to 5 games back by the All-Star break, that's back in it, in my opinion. 5 games out of first place, that's back in it in my mind. So, and I think cutting it down to 4 games and that, like, what, a month, that's perfectly reasonable.
Ian, what do you think, man? Would you make that trade?
I don't think I would. I mean, Betts is playing at such a high level right now, and I think this is just the beginning of what he can do. And, I mean, they really seem set with up the middle right now with Pedroia, Bogarts, Betts, and Swire. I really feel like they're locking in on that as their core, especially with them not bringing up Bradley and Castillo not playing as much. I really feel like they're believing in Betts and a lot of those guys up the middle, so I don't think that they would make the deal. I don't think I would either.
So I want to make this perfectly clear. I totally believe both of your answers are completely based on Mookie Betts'
last week.
Yeah. Well, not only that, but his potential ceiling, as opposed to Rick Porcello, like, turning this thing around and being even like a solid number 3 in the next 3 years. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I think that Porcello is not as bad as he's been this year. But people are just going to – I mean, it looks like he's a mentally fragile guy to be, you know, talking about how there's so much pressure on him now and how he keeps giving back these leads because of the pressure that comes with it. And it's like, dude, you're in last place. Like, how much pressure is there? You're going out there and getting smoked every single night. And he's 0-6 in his last 6 starts right now.
Awful.
And I did the math today, and based on if he makes 30 starts next year when he gets bumped up to 20 million, based on 100 pitches per start, 30 starts, he's gonna make $6,666 per pitch next year, which is terrible. Like, that's just awful. Wow. Like, when you break it down like that, it's just like, yikes. Probably shouldn't have paid him that much money.
It's brutal. It's brutal. Yep. And keeping on pitching, too, like, the 2 people I want to talk about are Rodriguez, Eddie, and Wade Miley. especially over this past weekend. Jared, what's some of your thoughts on how Rodriguez has pitched? Obviously, he had that just that nasty 9-run burnout game, but for out of the three out of the 4 games, he's been solid. What are your kind of early thoughts on him?
I mean, obviously, for a guy that's 22 years old right now, I think that he's exceeded a lot of expectations. And I'm not going to hide from it. I was one of the guys that when he got called up, I was like, he's not ready. He hasn't even had a full season in AAA yet. And, he's proved me wrong, definitely. I mean, I didn't think that it wouldn't happen eventually, but not this soon. I had the stat written down yesterday, but it's something like 82. He's thrown 82 or 84 changeups this year, and he hasn't given up a hit on any of them. So, yeah, that changeup is working pretty nice for him.
I'd say so. Ian, what do you think of him?
Yeah, he looks like the real deal. I mean, going back to last season when they traded Miller for him, I mean, at the time you were thinking they got, I think it was, Rodriguez was ranked as the number 3 prospect in Baltimore's system, and they were saying, he had some issues, but a guy with high ceiling, and we're really seeing it now. I think sky's the limit for him. I think he's going to do great things for this team going forward.
The other guy I want to talk about is Wade Miley. What a rascal that guy is. And since his meltdown in Baltimore, he's gone 2-0, gone at least 6 innings, and out of the 2 games, he's given up 2 earned runs. Is this a turnaround for Miley? Was this one of those things where in Baltimore he had the breakdown and Farrell took him, behind the scenes and whooped up on him? That old man that's a big old man. And kind of flipped Miley around. I mean, it's only 2 games, but it's been a solid 2 games. Is this kind of the turnaround for Miley this season, you think?
I wouldn't even say that he needed a turnaround. I would say that was probably one really poor start that he had out there in Baltimore. But before that, I mean, he was pitching pretty consistently well, I would say. So, yeah, I don't know if it was really a turning point. I think that start was just kind of an outlier, kind of a stinker over a stretch of pretty consistently good starts.
Would you consider him? He's got 7 wins and leading this staff in wins, which I don't know if that's something to brag about, but is he the guy that you would give the ball to in Game 1?
No, and this will probably surprise a lot of people, but I would probably give it to Clay Buchholz because aside from that 10-run game that he had in Yankee Stadium back in April, he's been the Red Sox best pitcher this year, and he's been consistent, and he's proven why it's so frustrating to watch him pitch so poorly over the past couple of years is because, I mean, we've heard this 1,000 times that his potential is just so high to be that guy. I mean, in 2013 we saw it in the first half of the season where, I mean, if he doesn't get hurt, he's the starting pitcher for the American League All-Star team that year. And not to say that he's going to be an All-Star this year, but I mean, he's definitely been the most consistent and good performer for the Red Sox this year.
What do you think, Ian? Is Miley stepping up and kind of taking over as either 1 or 2 of this team, or do you think that's still reserved for Buchholz and maybe the emerging Rodriguez?
Yeah, I'd say that's probably reserved for those 2. The problem with this team is they need Miley to be a back-end 4 or 5, and right now he's pitching towards the middle/top of the rotation. That's kind of the issue that this team's having right now. But he's pitching well, and that's really all you can ask for out of this team. So, I mean, it's great to see Miley go out there and give 6 quality innings basically every time out. So I think that he's going to continue to do well, and if the guys around him can step it up, it's just going to make his job that much easier.
Interesting. Yeah, I think I'd agree with you, Jared. I think right now the way that Buchholz is pitching, you give him the ball, but
which scares the living hell out of me, by the way.
Well, of course.
I mean, he's another guy like Porcello that's just total mental case. Whenever you give him the ball, it's he can pitch well during the regular season, but when the lights shine the brightest, am I comfortable with giving Clay Buchholz the ball? Absolutely not. But I guess he's the tallest midget, as they would say.
Well, let me ask you this. Every time I watch him and Porcello pitch, I swear to God, they both are like freaking ADD guys when there's guys on base. They pay more attention to first base than they do Leon giving them the signs to what they need to pitch. And it's frustrating. It's crap. And it makes me think that guy's head's not in the game. So I would be nervous too. But I think if Rodriguez continues to pitch, wouldn't he be the clear number 1 if he continues on this streak?
Yes and no, because I'm sure that let's say hypothetically, and this is completely hypothetical, let's say that the Red Sox somehow find a way to win the division, make the playoffs. Rodriguez, I'm assuming, is going to be on some sort of an innings limit, and I don't think that they would put his future in jeopardy by putting too much strain on his arm because, like you guys said, he's a special talent, and we've seen what happened with Strasburg when they shut him down before the Nationals made that playoff run where I think they got bumped in the first round or something like that. But the Red Sox are very protective of their young arms, so it would surprise me. I mean, there would probably be like an outrage if the Red Sox did make the playoffs and he wasn't in the rotation, but it wouldn't shock me at all if they were like, yeah, we're shutting him down, sorry.
Right. Just so everybody knows, if you don't get a chance, Jared Carrabis, follow him on Twitter at Jared, Jared _Carrabis, Carrabis. You can catch him. Hilarious on Twitter. I think that's probably like some of your funniest fan engagement outside of reading your comments on Barstool is the fact that people the stuff that people tweet you, whether it's hate or love, is hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, like before we came on, like some lady was chirping at me, but I love it. Like I don't care whether it's good stuff or bad stuff. I'll more often than not I'll respond, and I have fun with it. It's just the internet. I don't really care.
Nice. All right, Ian. Let me ask you this: Mookie is especially this Kansas City series went nuts. I think he was 9 for 14, 2 home runs, 4 or 5 RBIs. 5 or 6 runs or something like that. He went off this series. We said it before earlier. This guy is starting to show his potential. What's the ceiling on him?
I think he's capable of being an all-star. I think he's capable of being, probably a 1 or 2 hitter. I think that's where he's best suited. Maybe 20 homers down the line because he's got pop. He can turn the inside fastball. Good base runner as well. I mean, the steals. They've been there a little bit, but you like to see them be there a little bit more. As a fielder, he's turned into a pretty good center fielder. I mean, not Bradley level, but he's turned into a pretty good outfielder. And I think that he's a potential all-star, and I really feel that they want to keep him as part of their core, and that's why they're reluctant to trade him for a Cole Hamels or any other ace that's out there.
Jared, do you feel the same?
Yeah, I mean, before the season started, Betts was a guy that was drawing a lot of comparisons to Andrew McCutchen, and somebody tweeted me their stat lines today and compared them with covering their names up, and it's pretty impressive how close, even after the way that he started the season, like this surge that he's been on now, it's pretty impressive how close, I guess, Betts is to Andrew McCutchen's performance this year.
And do you see him as an all-star? We're talking about center field, and it's not his natural position per se. I mean, he did play a lot of second base, meaning majority of it in the minors. Do you see him as an outfielder, or do you see him coming back in the infield?
No, I think he's going to be in the outfield, and especially in a premier position like center field like that. I mean, you look at directly up the middle for the Red Sox, and they're set for a long time. I mean, you got Swihart behind the plate, Pedroia is at second base, Bogart's at short, and then Betts in center field. I mean, that's probably one of the strongest up the middle, positions in all of baseball, and for a long time. So yeah, I would think that although he's not a natural outfielder or center fielder, I mean, he's made a really, really good transition to that position.
I would assume, like me, you were there opening day.
No, I wasn't. This was the first opening day that I missed in a long time, like 5 or 6 years, maybe 7.
Well, we'll forgive you for that. But that catch he made in the bullpen was pretty spectacular.
Yeah, what was that, Bryce Harper? So
yeah,
he's going to end the season with like 600 home runs instead of 601.
Yeah, all because of Mookie.
Yep.
So where does this leave JBJ? I mean, I know a lot of people are asking why is he up? With Castillo not hitting great, I don't have a problem with kind of switching out Holt and Manny. See, that's a Freudian slip. Hanley. But where does this leave JBJ? Is he trade bait now?
I think he should have been all along, to be honest with you. I think, well, they tried, from what I heard, they tried to move him over the offseason, and they were unsuccessful. And by now, I think, this could be a very boring trade deadline for the Red Sox, where it's like, they don't do anything huge, but they make a kind of like a little trade here and there. Kind of, what was that, 2010 maybe, that they got Saltalamacchia, and everyone was like, okay, that's great, but how's that going to help us for now? And it didn't, but he was a big piece of that 2013 season. So I think that JBJ is a guy that they could look to move this trade deadline, and people will look at it and be like, okay, like how's that going to help us? But you never know what kind of return a guy like that would bring, because he is a special player. There's no doubt about it. It's just there's no room for him here. They haven't really given him the opportunity, at least this year. I mean, he came up and he was 0 for 11, but he faced like R.A. Dickey and Felix Hernandez. So yeah, he was 0 for 11, but there's just no way to give him consistent at-bats to see what he can really do now, because, I mean, obviously he's tearing the cover off the ball for the Paw Sox. And I just, it sucks that money dictates playing time, because there's no doubt that, JBJ deserves to be playing over Rusney Castillo, and he deserves to be playing over fragile Shane Victorino. But the only thing is, does he deserve to be playing over Brock Holt? No. And does he deserve to be playing over Hanley and Mookie Betts? No. So, yeah, I think that he'll be one of those guys who benefits from the change of scenery. And, if he becomes a National League guy, he'll be unbelievable. There's no doubt about it that everyone will be kicking themselves for, oh, why don't we give Jackie Bradley Jr. a chance once he gets traded and becomes a superstar somewhere else?
Well, that's what we call a segue, and I think Carrabis has done enough podcasts. Let's talk about Brock Holt. Ian, is Brock Holt earned playing time now as a everyday starter, or once the full roster gets back, is he going to be sitting on the pine waiting to get in defensive replacements or spot starts?
Well, over the past week, he's hitting 448. So I mean, just ride the streak. I mean, if he keeps hitting, keep playing him. I mean, someone's going to need a day off. I mean, that's the value of Holt. You can plug him in anywhere, and especially right field right now not being at its peak, with Castillo not doing really anything, and De Aza just providing a little bit. With Pedroia back now, and if Sandoval's back tomorrow, you'll probably see Sandoval back, Pedroia, and then Holt should probably be out in right field. I mean, whenever someone needs a day off, just plug him in. I mean, he's hitting phenomenally right now, so I mean, why not just ride it out? And once he cools off, then obviously you can go to your more traditional guys like a De Aza or Castillo out in right. But until then, just let him play. I mean, he's been awesome. He's a rock star for a reason.
So what you're saying is that he should play every day, but substitute somebody every day. The guy, I heard somebody that when Swihart got hurt, they were talking about the telecast. Well, who's the backup if Leon gets hurt? And they're like, Brock Holt. Brock Holt's the backup for everybody. I mean, he plays all 9 positions. Jared, is he going to get the playing time he probably deserves at this point, or are they going to sit him?
No, I don't think that there's any way to justify sitting Brock Holt at this point. I don't think that they'll commit to just one position for Brock Holt, but there's no problem with that. I mean, he's basically the Red Sox version of Ben Zobrist, and I'm totally fine with that. As long as his bat is in the lineup every day, he's not a defensive liability anywhere that you put him. So, I mean, as long as he's in the lineup, and that's one of his greatest values besides his bat, is being able to give a guy a day off literally anywhere in the field. So, yeah, I think he's definitely hit his way into this lineup until he proves otherwise.
So there was a report today on Yahoo, I think it was Jeff Hassan, reporting about the Red Sox. He put a lot of stuff in that article. It was kind of breaking down the AL East. And one of the things he talked about was Hanley and him grading on people in the clubhouse. And, I mean, I don't think it's any surprise. People are pissed off because he doesn't work as hard, or he's perceived not to work as hard, or his work ethic level is that of, like, a bulldog at this point. He's just not really trying. Ian, is this a surprise? I mean, I feel like this is a story that we all kind of knew underlying was happening, but is this something to be worried about?
Well, I think it's something to worry about if he doesn't continue to get better. Well, if he doesn't get better in the field, because he hasn't really gotten better at all to begin with. But I mean, if he's hitting like he is now, he keeps hitting. I mean, it is what it is. You plug in De Aza or Castillo in as a defensive replacement late in the game if you have the lead. I mean, Hanley isn't, a bulldog, as you would say, guy who's going to go out there and grind it out like a Brock Holt, but it is what it is. I mean, the Red Sox knew that when they got him.
Carrabis, you got any? I mean, you got to imagine this is nothing new. And he's been in the system when he was coming up through the minors, and I don't think the Red Sox felt that bad dealing him off to the Marlins when they did because of that attitude. This is nothing new, right? I mean, we shouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, basically what Ian said. The Red Sox knew what they were getting into when they signed him. I think I read the passing story today, and it was basically saying, that's one of the reasons why they traded him in the first place. People forget that wasn't a Theo Epstein trade. That was a Ben Cherington and Jed Hoyer trade when they were co-GMs for 3 weeks. That one off season in 2006, and that's how they got like Beckett and Michael. But yeah, I think that he rubs people the wrong way because he's so careless, but he's so talented that I guess he can be in a way. You know what I mean? Like like he doesn't have to be the Dustin Pedroia kind of guy that shows up at the ballpark every day at 6 o'clock in the morning, already wearing his uniform and taking ground balls. Like he's just he's like there's the people that are naturally gifted, and then there's the people that have to work really hard to stay on top of their game every day. And Hanley's just one of those naturally gifted guys that he can just show up and hit, and that's what he does. And I'm sure that rubs a lot of the dirt dogs and the hard workers the wrong way, who are trying to set an example. And people don't, I guess, recognize this trend that he seems to be missing a lot of day games, which I think there might be something to that, because we all know that. Well, I don't know if we all know, but Hanley likes to party. So
yes, he does.
I don't know if he misses a lot of day games because he's out the night before, but that's a bad look too. So I don't know. Maybe the Globe will have that story next, because I'm not breaking any more of that shit.
So you're not going to be out on Lansdowne Street just trolling?
Nope. Even if I see it, I'm just going to look the other way. Not my problem.
No pictures, nothing. Look at that.
Nope.
Look what you've done, people. Don't neuter Carrabis, for the love of God. I don't know what the deal is with Hanley. I heard, and I've heard since back in the day when he was here, that he loved to party. He loved to enjoy his time on the town.
Yeah, that too. Because during spring training, I heard a lot of Hanley party stories, because he lives in the Florida area. He's next door neighbors with Manny Ramirez, which is hilarious. I can just imagine them just like talking to just talking to each other like Home Improvement, just leaning over the fence talking to each other. But I'm sure he had his fun down there in spring training when they were down there for a month or two. But yeah, I think, and then you look at that game where he came out because he got dizzy because he was cold, and it was just like, wait a second. I didn't know that dizziness was a side effect to 40-degree weather. So
it's gonna suck come October if they get there.
Yeah, that's the thing too. Yeah, so I don't know. We'll see. But they knew what they were getting themselves into, and I don't know if they thought that he changed, because I believe it was Pedroia who, I guess, recruited Hanley in the first place, and was talking to him in the off season and said, come on, when are you going to come to Boston and get a ring? And that kind of motivated him to switch positions and blah, blah, blah. Now he's here, and he wants to win the championship. But, I mean, he looked great in April, so, I mean, shit, when he wants to turn it on, he can turn it on. So,
and I think that's the most Hanley is like the personification of this Red Sox team. So much talent, and you saw it on Sunday's game, 13-2. They can hit when they want to hit. They can get good pitching, and I say good pitching in quotes. I mean, they can get decent pitching, enough for them to hold off a team to be able to score enough runs. And then there's like the crap games, like the Porcellos of giving up runs. Like it's infuriating to watch this team, and I think Manny's just a personification of that.
Hanley.
See? Hanley.
Same guy.
Yeah, pretty much. So let's get into this. I know today it kind of spread around. Red Sox are going to retire Pedro's 45, and I think that's pretty cool. I believe that's the first pitcher number they're going to retire.
Yes, it is.
For those of you who don't know, it's going to be on July 28th. That's a game against the White Sox at home. Ian, let me ask you, what are your initial thoughts on it?
Well deserved. I mean, Pedro, probably best pitcher in Red Sox history. I mean, he's phenomenal. I mean, just all the stuff he did for them. '99 playoffs to '04. And I mean, they wouldn't have won it without him. I mean, he was just that influential for them. All the great games against the Yankees, and he was their leader. He wasn't afraid to throw in at a guy, and he was really it was really a fantastic trade for them to get him in the first place. But it's well deserved, and I think it's going to be a great day at Fenway.
Jared, thoughts, just initial thoughts at first. What'd you think?
I mean, it was no shocker. I saw what they did with Jim Rice when he got voted into the Hall of Fame, and then they looked at that Hall of Fame weekend, and then when he got back, then they retired his number. So I knew that night was the night that they were doing like a promo for the Pedro plaque that they were giving away. So I think I said it on a podcast like 2-3 weeks ago because we were talking about like retired jersey numbers and which guys in the future they'll retire, and I was like, yeah, they'll probably retire Pedro's number on the night that they're doing the Pedro plaque. So I don't know what took them so long to even come out and say that. Like, wouldn't you want to promote that like weeks in advance so people can plan and buy tickets? But
they're waiting for the season to suck.
Yeah, pretty much. Honestly, that's what they do. Like, they just wait for the season to be terrible, and then they bring back the '04 team, and then they do a reunion because everyone's pissed off. But yeah, I mean, he's easily the best pitcher, and in my opinion, I'm not even going to say Red Sox history. I think that Pedro Martinez is the best pitcher of all time, ever, any era.
Hot takes by Carrabis right now.
In any era. And I had like this big debate with my boss over this because he was trying to say that I forget who even was trying to come at me with, but it was bullshit. Pedro is the best pitcher of all time. He has the most dominant statistics of all time in an era where everyone was juiced out of their minds, just steroids just pouring out of their ears. And Pedro had the most dominant video game statistics of all time, and he did it in the American League East, and he did it when he was facing the Yankees 19 times a year when they were winning the World Series every single year. So, yeah, Pedro Martinez, in my opinion, is the greatest pitcher of all time, and he deserves this honor.
True or false, Pedro was on steroids?
I don't know.
Fifth?
I wasn't
The
there.
Fifth? You gonna go with the fifth?
Yeah, I'll plead the 45th.
Ian, I'll throw it to you, man. Pedro might be watching. I doubt it, but hey.
I don't know. I don't think he was. I mean, he was a small guy. I mean, granted, he threw incredibly hard, but I don't know. I just can't see it. Granted, that might be a homer perspective, but
yeah, there's a story that you might not know about Ian, and I'm not going to share it on this particular show, but I can send it to you privately so that you can form your own opinions, and we'll see what happens from there. But yeah, I will plead the fifth on this topic.
I think I know what story you're talking about.
Yeah, it was something in 2002, and we'll leave it at that.
Yep. So sweet. So I think it's awesome. I love Pedro. I mean, if you look at my Twitter bio, Pedro is the GOAT. I love Pedro. I mean, growing up, I saw Clemens at Fenway, and I saw Pedro at Fenway, and I got to say, for pure talent, hands down, Pedro was better than Roger. Roger could throw hard, and he'd intimidate you, but so couldn't Pedro.
Yeah.
And Pedro did it in a weird way. He did it with not brute strength, even though he did have it. He did it with finesse. And, man, like, that guy's changeup was unreal. Just an unreal changeup.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing that a lot of people, I guess, don't give Pedro credit for is that, when you watch Pedro highlights, you see the '99 All-Star game, you see the 2000 season where he was blowing guys away and, the Bugs Bunny changeup. But Pedro pitched until 2009, and he pitched in the World Series with the Phillies, and he did it with, what was his fastball, like 89, like 90, barely. And he did it because he's a pitcher. Like, he knows how to pitch. I mean, these other guys are throwers. They can just blow you away, but when they run out of gas, that's it. They don't know how to pitch to you if they can't just blow you away. And that's why Pedro was the best, because he would just pick you apart, and he knew how to do that even when he didn't have his best stuff.
At the height, I think, in my opinion, at the height of Pedro's career, Pedro had the stuff as far as like the power of Roger, or I mean any big power pitcher, but also the command and the ability to work the plate like a Maddox. Like if he wanted it on the outside, it was going on the outside, or if he
Right.
wanted it down in, he was going down in, and it was just unreal how that guy pitched. Totally deserves this. I think it's great honor. I think it's great. He's the first Red Sox pitcher to get his number retired, and I think moving forward,
Officially.
officially. But yeah. So what I want to do is, Jared, we do a little Q&A at the end. We start asking some questions that tweeters have asked us. So I'll ask you the first one that I got. Jim wants to know, what's it like working at Barstool, and is El Prez as crazy as he sounds?
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. I mean, Dave's awesome. He's the kind of guy that if you're on his side, he'll do anything for you, but if you're against him, he'll do everything to make your life miserable. The first time that I went to Barstool headquarters was the day that he did the Justin Bieber, what was that, like Men's Fitness magazine. So I walked in the door to have my meeting with him, and he was shirtless, covered in fake tattoos, fake Justin Bieber tattoos. So I mean, he's a character, but I mean, El Prez online is like a character, but Dave Portnoy, away from like a computer screen, he's a great guy. He's you know, like I said, he'll do anything for you if you're on his side. If you're on his team, you know, he'll take the shirt off his back, literally, and put on Justin Bieber tattoos.
Okay, second question. When are the Red Sox going to give press credentials to, and he used the word bloggers, but I'm assuming not mainstream media, and do you think you'll ever get one?
Not after the Sandoval story. Let me say, I know that they've entertained the idea, and I know that they've talked to different bloggers, quote-unquote bloggers, about, you know, if we let bloggers in, you know, you're the first guy in line. I know that they've said that to with the Firebrand of the AL guys.
Mm-hmm.
I think that, yeah, I don't even know if that site still exists, but I know that they've talked to them about it. But personally, I wouldn't want to be credentialed. The only time that I would ever want to be credentialed is for the podcast, so that I can go in and get audio for the podcast. Because, I mean, I write from the fans' perspective. So if I'm covering the game, I want to be seeing what you at home are seeing. Because half the stuff that's blog-worthy is like the quirky stuff that Remy and Orsillo are doing, or like the people in the crowd, or just random stuff, or, you know, when Jerry Remy accidentally like swears on the broadcast, like that's a blog, and I wouldn't see that if I'm in the press box. So yeah, I mean, that's really the only time that as a blogger I would want it, is for the podcast. But I think that over time they'll probably start to let a few guys in here and there, but you know, they're
Selective guys.
they're very particular about who they let up there.
I can understand that. They're image conscious, right?
Very, very PR conscious organization. I've been up there. I've already cracked the code. I've been up there twice. But yeah, I went up there in 2012, which was a disaster, because that was the year that they were terrible. That was the Bobby Valentine year, and I
Did you
remember
go up at Stock Space?
I went up for a magazine that I'm not going to plug because they're a bunch of dickbags. So
Fair enough. Fair enough.
I went in 2012 with them, and it was like a funeral. Like when you went into the clubhouse, everyone was just like quiet. It literally felt like I was at a wake. Like that's the only thing that I could compare it to, was just that awkward, silent, standing around, feeling like you're at a wake, just like you feel so uncomfortable and you just kind of want to leave. That's what it felt like to be in the clubhouse in 2012.
Oh, wonderful.
Yep.
Ian, would you want to be credentialed as right now as a quote unquote blogger?
I don't know. I mean, that's a lot of stuff going on in there.
So you don't know?
At some point, but not now.
I feel like people get this idea that being credentialed is like the greatest thing ever, and until you get to the other side and you realize it's
not as great as it seems.
No.
Yeah. I mean, it is. I'm glad that it happened. I'm glad that I can say that I've done it. Just to say that I've been there, it's an accomplishment. Great, good for me. But I don't. If I never go back, I'm not going to be sad about it at all.
I'll ask you a Red Sox question here. Connor asked, "Do you think we could pry Sale away from the White Sox?" That's
I can't say his name. I can't say. Did you know about the backstory? Because I'm assuming that they either saw my tweets in the off season or listened to the story on the podcast. Do you know about this backstory?
I don't know. I don't know about it.
Okay, so basically what happened was I had some info that the Red Sox were trying to get Chris Sale from the White Sox. What happened was it was originally a pick 5. The Red Sox gave the White Sox a list of, I don't know, maybe 10 or 12 guys and said pick 5 for Chris Sale. And then it
Right.
became a pick 6, and they agreed on 3 or 4 of the names. And then it fell through when the White Sox were like, okay, screw it, we're going to go for it. And then they signed like Melky, traded for Samardzija. And yeah, it was close. This actually happened and wasn't reported anywhere. Nobody like picked up on it. And when I was tweeting about it, White Sox fans came out of the woodwork and were just crucifying me for even suggesting that the White Sox would even entertain trading Chris Sale. So, yeah, I got some heat for that. I've been getting a lot of heat. I've been stirring a lot of shit the past year, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Nobody wants to see you on top, Jared.
I guess not. I mean, hey, they're going to have to deal with it because Barstool runs the world.
Clearly.
Yeah.
We'll get to that in a second. Ian, do you think? Obviously, you heard Jared's kind of detailed info that he got on the download there. Do you think they could pull it off ever? Especially now that they tried and it didn't work out?
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think it's going to happen. I mean, I feel like the White Sox are going to go with Sale and Abreu as their guys going forward, for better or for worse. I mean, you kind of have to have, your star players, and I feel like they can't afford to trade again and then start over because, I mean, they're not a great team to begin with, but they got some guys, like Samardzija now, and, they're on the ups, but it's a tough division, but I don't feel like they're going to go backwards again before they try to go forwards.
So one of the things that I got DM'd about by a bunch of people, most of these people I don't even know, was, "Hey, you got Jared Carrabis on Red Sox Life? Cool. Can you tell him that I love the one with him, Pete, and El Prez, the podcast, your section."
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
so if you're watching and you don't know, I don't know how you don't know. It's probably one of the funniest things I've listened to. Jared, Pete Blackburn have a podcast called the Section 10 Podcast. You can download it on iTunes. It's great stuff, great content, funny as hell.
Appreciate it.
But one of the funniest things is when you did have El Prez on, you had David Portnoy on,
Yep.
and I think I counted 23 different people asking me all the stories that he told you, were they real? Like all the stories he had that he didn't post. There was a section in that podcast where you guys were talking about when he was just saying, these people don't know us. They don't know that we have, they don't really know what we get and what we do and don't post. He was talking about the Jenny Dell stuff.
Yep.
And so one of the questions was, do you get a bunch of stuff more now, like tips and kind of back channeling because you're with Barstool, or have you always gotten the same?
I've definitely gotten stories over the years, and most of them I wouldn't touch. What a lot of people don't realize is that for years my goal was to work for the Red Sox, and I interviewed with the Red Sox this past October, and that's another story in its own. But yeah, I interviewed there, and then that didn't work out, not for anything that I did. I'm going to keep my mouth shut there. But so that's when I ended up at Barstool. But before I ended up at Barstool, I would get, I would hear things and wouldn't report them because I didn't want to be on bad terms with the organization. But now it's like, okay, I'm with Barstool, so whenever this stuff comes my way, it's coming out because that's my job. That's what I get paid to do, and I have a responsibility, and it is what it is. And yeah, I do get a lot more now, but I did get some before. But yeah, I definitely get more now that I have like the Barstool affiliation, and also the Twitter function to open up your DMs. Yeah, a lot of people like to use that with me. A lot of people will be like, "Hey, I heard such and such," but like I don't spread gossip stuff. I mean, like it's interesting to hear about, but I don't like to spread rumors, especially if I can't confirm it. And like that's the one thing that people don't understand is that especially when it comes to the Sandoval story. I don't want to be a TMZ kind of reporter blogger. I mean, that ended up being what it was, the Sandoval thing. That wasn't my intention, and that's kind of why in 2012 I kind of stepped back from blogging a little bit, because that was all the stuff that was coming out from that team was just these like bullshit TMZ kind of stories. And then 2013 I barely blogged, like barely, because I was just so like turned off by it, and like how
Right.
the media was covering the team and how it was my job to cover these stories. And I was like, I'm not really interested. Like I'm interested in the baseball part of it, not the, all the stuff in between. So it's kind of ironic that, I was the guy that came up with the TMZ story of the year.
Clearly.
Yeah.
Hey, good for you, dude. Because
I'm not proud of it. And that's one of we just came out with the podcast tonight. It's on Barstool right now. And I say in the podcast, I am not proud of that. I mean, I got people tweeting me pictures of their TVs with like my face on it in a tweet, and like I didn't retweet any of that stuff. I'm not trying to glorify the Sandoval story. This podcast that we just put out is like me just getting my side of the story out there, because the people that were saying snitch and rat and all this stuff, I'm just setting the record straight. What actually happened? Here's my story. I had the day that the story broke, I had, these radio stations from Atlanta, Wisconsin, all these other people trying to get me on their radio shows because it's like a sideshow to them. I didn't want to be part of the story. Right. So I just was like, hey, I appreciate that you want to have me on, but I have my own podcast. I'm going to set the record straight there, and then I'll be done with it, and it's dead.
I thought, I can't remember if it was Sunday. I think it was. Maybe not Sunday or Saturday. You were on with Pac-Man, weren't you, on 98.5?
I went on with Adam Jones on Sunday, but that was more like, we addressed the Sandoval thing, but we were more really talking about the team.
Yeah, no, but I thought you were just, I thought you did a good job of explaining your side of the story.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
It wasn't like you were trying to creep on him. It just, right. And anybody who knows anything about Instagram knows that when you go to, like, your people you follow, you can see everybody they like. It's not like you actively sought out Pablo Sandoval.
No, yeah,
like,
and that was the thing too. And I talk about this in the podcast, but just kind of a little story to put in perspective how some of the beat writers are douchebags. I tweeted the story out, or I tweeted the screenshot, whatever, and I got an email later that night from one of the beat writers that was like, oh, hey, his brother and his agent have access to the account. And I was like, okay, I'll put that tidbit in my story. Thanks for the tip. But I'm still going to run the story because there's reason to believe that it was him. So I'm still, and it's now become a story. So obviously I have to address it. So I put that in there. And then he emails me again, and he was like, well, nope, there's no way it was him because, there's, for gambling reasons, it's banned to have your phone in the clubhouse. It wasn't him. And I was like, okay. So then Sandoval admits it, and he gets benched for a game. And then I emailed the guy back, and I was like, cough, cough. And he was like, oh, yeah, congrats on being an Instagram stalker. And I was like, do you even know how Instagram works? Because I feel like you don't if you say that. Because the Instagram feed, the way it works is I was just looking at Instagram to see, because that's how you find new people to follow. That's what you see, what everyone's like, talking about, whatever. Because like I said on the podcast to Pete, I have no idea like what's in now. I have no idea what's cool, and like that's one of the ways that I find out like, okay, what are people into right now? And I just so happen to scroll by and be like, wait a second, did Pablo Sandoval just like these two pictures? Because I'm pretty sure he's in the game right now. So I just tweeted it out there because it was just like something random that I saw. So that's basically it.
And I think that's if you're not on Instagram, at least go on there and check it out before you start blasting somebody and calling them a stalker. That was my whole thing, is know what you're talking about before you start, blowing people up, calling them stalkers.
Yeah, he had no idea, but I let him. I don't name who it was, and it doesn't matter. I'm not in the business of name dropping and like putting, whatever. I'm not gonna put him on the spot, but he knows who he is, and he got his in the podcast.
Well, there you go. Okay, last question for you, Jared.
Sweet.
Last one we have is, I thought it was an interesting one. Do you work full-time at Barstool? I know the answer, but I'll let you explain it. And if you do, are you going to go into anything? Are you going to go post anything other than Red Sox? And if you don't work full time, why not? And are you going to start?
I have a full-time job at a marketing company, so that's my day job. I work 8 to 4 Monday through Friday, and
Working
then
man.
and then I cover the Red Sox for Barstool part-time. So, and that's the other thing that sometimes pisses me off is I'll write a blog for Barstool. That every blog that I write, if it's about a game, I write it the night before. And then, because you guys probably know this, that baseball statistic websites aren't updated like immediately after the game. So, like, I'll write my blogs the night before. I'll save it as a draft, and then in the morning I'll wake up early, and then I'll update all the statistics for whatever it is that I was talking about. And then people will be like, "Oh yeah, nice hot take. I heard that on Dennis and Callahan this morning." And like, that's great that they agree with me because I wrote it about 6 hours before they went on the fucking air. So. But that's what I do. I cover the Red Sox part-time for Barstool. But yeah, Dave and I have talked about potentially doing like a Barstool baseball blog where it wouldn't just be Red Sox. It would be all MLB, and we would have a bunch of different guys come in. Like, we have a lot of guys internally that cover baseball for Barstool. I mean, Nate covers the Nats, JJ covers the Yankees, KFC covers the Mets, RDT covers the Orioles. So we have plenty of in-house guys that are capable of covering the MLB. So who knows? I mean, he said that that's something that he could see for next year. So, I mean, it's something that I really have to think about. And hopefully it comes to fruition because obviously covering baseball full-time would be a dream of mine. So we'll see.
Awesome. Hey, Ian, do you have a question for Pete? Pete, oh my gosh. Jared?
Wow.
I know.
Don't let Pete know that just happened because his head is already big. So.
Well, here's the deal. I'm watching the Twitter feed here, and he's just never mind.
Pete just like hitched onto the wagon after this Sandoval thing because after I went on to the Adam Jones show on 98.5, like Pete got a name drop out of that somehow. Adam Jones was like, yeah, like Jared Carrabis of the Section 10 podcast with Pete Blackburn. I was like, Really? Like Pete's gonna get a name drop out of this? Dude doesn't even watch baseball.
Funny story. So it seems like everybody that either blogs in Boston has some kind of interconnection.
Yeah.
So I wrote for Pete for about almost 2 months when he had the nosebleeds.
Oh God.
and so he hired me. He didn't hire me. He brought me on as I was doing like tech stuff, and I was starting to write some sports. And then he emails me literally like 6 weeks later. He goes, "Hey man, I'm shutting the site down. I'm going over to next level.
Impulse.
Yeah, yeah. He's like, yeah. And I'm like, oh, okay. And he's like, yeah, did great work, but yeah, I'm leaving to go over there. Like,
see, Pete just sucks, and everyone needs to know that he's going on vacation for his friggin' birthday. It's like, dude, you really need to take 2 weeks off for your birthday. Give me a break. So now we're on a 2-week layoff for the podcast because of Pete and his birthday.
Lame.
Terrible.
Totally lame.
Yep.
Ian, do you have a question, man?
So here's the first question. 1, how did you end up on a baseball podcast? And 2, do you love Wade Miley as much as him?
How did he end up on a baseball podcast?
Yep.
We graduated from the same college, but we didn't meet in college because I went to night school because I was still working when I was getting my degree. So we met through a mutual friend. And I think what happened was like the whole concept for the Section 10 podcast came from me listening to like wrestling podcasts because I didn't want to do a podcast that breaks down the X's and O's. Like, I feel like you can get that anywhere. Like you can listen to the radio if you want expert analysis on the team. So I was listening to like Stone Cold Steve Austin's podcast and like Colt Cabana and like Chris Jericho, like guys like that, and they would interview people within like the wrestling industry, but they would interview them as people. Whereas, like on the wrestling podcast, it was like, like if you watch wrestling, yes, they do interviews on the show, but they interview like the character and they don't interview the person. So that's why I was like, yeah, like I wish that there was a Red Sox version of this where we had media members and radio personalities and baseball executives, and we can just interview them as people so that we can hear these stories that you wouldn't have heard otherwise. So that's where it came from. and Pete kind of had talked to me about doing like a men's lifestyle podcast, and I was just like, let's combine that with Red Sox, since like that's where my audience is anyway. So, and that's how it came to be.
Good stuff.
Sweet. Well, hey, Jared, I appreciate you coming on, man. This is great. Loved having you on. It's good to hear your perspective. I know that you got a big following in Red Sox, and if you don't know, again, go to Section 10 podcast. It's Section the number 10 podcast. You put it out almost every week unless somebody goes on vacation like Pete, right?
Yeah, it's every single week we put it out, and yeah, we'll be off. Pete said that, you know, he might, because he's going to York, Maine, so if there's an emergency, that he'll come back this coming weekend to do a podcast. So I think that we might just like
York, Maine.
Yeah, who knows? We might just make up a story, and he'd have to believe it anyway because he doesn't watch the game, so he wouldn't know any different.
No, he's there for the men's lifestyle.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. So yeah, I think when we come back, we'll have Kirk Minahan, we'll have Bill Lee, and we'll have Scott Zolak. Nice. And I think I want to try to get Michael Silverman. He agreed to come on, but we haven't been able to book him yet. So I want to get Michael Silverman to come on because he wrote the Pedro book. So I want to sync that up with Pedro getting his number retired. So we'll see what happens.
Nice. Also, and if you want to follow Jared on Twitter, it's Jared JARED _ Carrabis CARRABIS. He's got great stuff. Jared, I appreciate you coming on, man.
This was a good time. Let's do this again sometime. Thank you very much for having me on.
Ian, thanks, man. You were great as usual, dude. This guy's going to college here next year. He's only, what are you, 18?
Yep.
Hell yeah.
He writes some great stuff, starting him young, man. You look at like June Lee and those guys who started, before they even left high school, and now they get all the scoops. So
yeah, I started when I was 16. So yeah, it's been a decade of destruction. So Ian, I wish you all the best, and congratulations for being where you are at this young age.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, guys, check us out on Red Sox Life. That's all one word. Go follow us on Twitter and like us on Facebook. And once again, we'll be here next week. And Jared, thanks again, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
All right.